Hi, I'm Jules, and welcome to episode 5 of the Honest Designer Diaries. This is a podcast where we talk about what it's actually like to be a designer, the stuff we usually keep to ourselves or only confess to our closest and dearest designer friends. And the one thing I've realised is no matter how experienced you get or how old you get, we all go through the same worries at some point. And today I'm joined by Bhavini Lakhani. And again, another chunky one, but such a good one. We could have talked for hours, and we are talking about trusting your gut, boundaries, and red flag clients. Enjoy.
We're similar ages, backgrounds, been in design for decades, and you have chosen a subject to talk about that's so good. But before we get to that, do you want to just say hello, introduce yourself, and tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Bhavini and I am a graphic designer. I've been freelancing for almost 15 years now. And that's so that's 15 years of freelance. And before that, there was maybe sort of 3 to 5 years agency and in-house experience. So I've been working in the design industry for a while now. I went freelance because I got made redundant and thought I'd try it out. And yeah, here we are 15 years later and I'm still loving it most of the time. It's stressful. You know it, you know how it goes. But I do absolutely love it. And I work on brand identity and marketing collateral for mid-sized businesses.
Yep, amazing. And very, very similar background to what I'm kind of doing in the freelance
Yeah.
journey as well. Brand identity, still print. I love when I get to do it.
Me too. Me too. I love getting on like a really good print project for a client. And when the brochure or the bit of marketing collateral that you're working on is delivered to the client and like their reaction to opening something and it being everything they were hoping it would be, it's so lovely, isn't it?
Do you know what I find though? I used to find, especially if I was doing an annual report and you get the box delivered and you'd open it up. First of all, I'll probably sound like a complete weirdo saying this. I love the smell of print.
Yes, I completely agree with you on that one.
I love smelling the brochures. But then I get the fear and I immediately scan to make sure there's no obvious spelling mistakes that just jump out at me immediately. And there's almost like that gap of if you don't hear anything within the first day, then you know nobody's found it.
Yeah, then you're fine.
Yeah.
You
And
can
I don't
relax.
think I'll ever get rid of that fear. Like,
No, I
ever.
don't think that ever goes. But I think that's because we care.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's because we put so much into the work that we produce.
Yes. And nobody even really spots all the tiny things you might do as a designer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had to do this, and it's something I had to do for years was because we've been in design so long, when you used to get the word copy, the content, that it had double spaces after full stop.
Oh, yes.
And then you would literally have to go through the whole document and manually remove the double spaces after full stops because you don't put that into like printed versions but you'd often it would be people who have typed for years and that was their automatic
And that's their automatic thing, isn't it?
and nobody really notices that you take them out. And it used to be like somebody would go through it and mark it and go double space, obviously remove, and see if you spotted one that you missed after you got it printed. I'd be gutted.
Oh, I know. This is where I love things like in InDesign where it's got the find and replace and you can just get it to remove the double space and scan the entire document and do it automatically.
Yes.
I say that.
And it's such a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And I know that's like completely not what we're going to be talking about, but I just had to mention that because when I get quite geeky about print, and when I meet somebody who's a fellow print
Oh, I do too. I have been known to do this. I am the person who will take business cards because I still love my business cards to like a networking event, and I will hand it out. And I've got a really nice soft touch laminate on my cards. I'm going,
so do
my
I.
cards, just stroke my card.
Funny enough, I've always had the velvet laminate for a few years now, and it's amazing the difference. People actually actively stroke it. A nice card, you go, I know it's a nice card. And I actually got, so my husband's self-employed, and I'd got some business cards for him, and he went, but why have you done that finish on my business cards? I was like, trust me.
Trust me. Yeah.
You give that to your customers, and most of your customers are female. They are going to appreciate this card. And he actually let me home the next day and he's like, oh my God, see those business cards you done for me? People love them. And I was like,
he's like, you're a genius.
I do know what I'm doing, honey. I do know what I'm doing. So now he's always like, you make sure you're putting the velvet laminate on for me.
Can you just make
Yeah.
sure that my cards feel nice. I love that.
Well, we are going to be talking today about boundaries
Yeah.
and not ignoring red flags and all trusting our gut, most importantly.
Yeah.
And I think we've got so much to talk about a subject and something that every designer struggles with. But
I
as you
agree.
may have found, it's not something that just you get better at and never struggle with again. And I was telling you before we come on the call that my husband was laughing when I said what I was going to be talking about today because he says you're awful. You are terrible at holding your boundaries and trusting your gut. And then you end up crying at 11 at night at
Yeah.
your computer and I'm bringing you cups of tea to calm you because a client's driving you nuts.
So I'm going to start by saying I think I'm getting better at listening to what my gut is saying and trusting it and acting on it. And then suddenly something will happen and it will completely throw me. And like you say, it's not something that ever goes away. And you add something else then to your little bank of red flags, don't you, that you weren't necessarily expecting. I've got so many stories I could tell you. Start with the latest one then, something from this year. So I say this year, it kind of all started towards the end of last year. I'd been asked by a client that I'd worked with a few years ago to provide a quote for doing some branding work and for some social media template work for her end client for an event that was happening this summer. So I took all the information that she'd given me, sent her a quote. And a week later, she said the client had given the go-ahead and that she would then send me details about what we needed to do to sort of start the work in December last year. Okay, that all fine. It was a client that I had worked with before where the project was fine, the work was fine. There were some niggly things that sometimes you just kind of gloss over and go, oh, it's a little bit tricky, but it's not something that would sort of put an end to the project. And when she came back, I was like, yeah, I'll work with her again. It's fine. And then December came and went, and I didn't hear anything about what we needed to do to start the project so that we'd hit our deadlines. And chased her up. She knew I was going to be off for a couple of weeks, heard nothing back. So chased her up in January again. And all she said to me was that the scope had changed a little bit, but that she'd be in touch. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, because if the scope has changed, I can adjust the quote and work within that. That's fine. All okay, right? Again, didn't hear anything for a while. So again, I was doing the chasing. So that was red flag number one. Why am I constantly chasing? And I'm then having to say to her, look, I'm not going to be able to meet your deadlines unless we get started on this. And at this point in sort of Jan, Feb, work wasn't quiet, but it wasn't so busy that I could then say, no, I can't take this on anymore.
Yeah.
And then she finally started emailing me. We set up a meeting to go over details and to get started on the work. And she said prior to the meeting and prior to her discussing in-depth details about the client, she wanted me to sign an NDA. Absolutely fine. Have no issues signing an NDA. Done it with lots of clients in the past. I'll carry on doing it. And she sent me over this Word document, and the title of the Word document was Contract for Services. And it was a 5-page document that I read through, and I did run it through Gemini and just asked it to summarize the document, because my initial thought was, this isn't an NDA, but let me just double check. And it came back with, it's definitely not an NDA, it's a contract for services. So we exchanged a few emails sort of going back and forth about what this actually is. And I put my foot down. So I'm not signing this document because I haven't agreed costs, deliverables, anything like that. So again, red flag number 2. Yeah. She then emailed me back pretty soon after I sent that, I'm not going to sign it, sort of explained why and explained I was happy to sign an NDA still at this point. And she emailed me back and she said, I tell you what, I'm not really sure what the issue is here, but I tell you what, just edit the document that I've sent you so that it says something you're comfortable with and then sign it and send it back to me. Red flag number 3.
Yeah.
And at this point, my gut's going like, run, run, run.
Yeah.
But I was still really unsure what to do because it was a massive chunky project. I knew the name of the end client and I knew it was a very well-known client. I knew it would be a good client to do some work for. Even if I had to sign an NDA and I couldn't talk about it and I couldn't share the work, that didn't bother me. It would be a really good client to work with. But that sort of email that she sent me where she said, just write what you want and send it back. It's
Yeah.
a bit of a, and in the end, I listened to my gut and I emailed her back and I said to her, I've had a bit of time to think about this and this project isn't going to work for me anymore, so I'm not going to take it on. And I cancelled the meeting. I didn't explain myself any further. I thought I'm better off sort of cancelling the meeting prior to doing the meeting and
Yeah.
wasting her time. And, like, I don't know how you put quotes together, but it takes quite a lot
It takes a lot
of time and effort
They're all
to put.
personalised. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I didn't want to spend my time quoting on a project where, 3 or 4 different red flags had come up before we'd even had a conversation about what the exact scope was.
Yeah, and I think also, though, probably in the background, the fact that her timeline had shifted from
Yeah.
everyone, then the scope of the project had shifted before you'd even
Yeah.
had a discussion with her.
Yep.
Then the stuff with the contract, your gut's already twinging before
Yeah.
the contract stuff came in. And I suppose now, and we have that hindsight of going, we know when things have went this way before.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. You know
That's
what's
when
happened, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they went wrong.
And that was my biggest fear in the end, that this was going to be a massive event, global event for a very well-known global company. And if I ended up creating work under pressure that there was some kind of error on, or the client wasn't happy with something, that's my reputation on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put myself through that. I'm not going to put myself through that pressure and that stress of creating for something like that, when right from the very beginning, there have been little niggly things that have just built and built and built.
Yeah. And there's also you've already set the expectation that she can bend your boundaries and barriers because you've been
Right.
so accommodating at the
Yeah.
start with these changes.
Yeah.
Then when she comes to you mid-project and the text is changed, or they've not got the copy to you on time but still want it
Right.
printed.
Yeah.
Now how they would expect you to still reach those, because there's just this unspoken rule that we will be accommodating and do it, and it's just part of the course and it's part of the industry.
Oh, do you know the relief when I sent that email
Yeah.
saying I'm not taking the project on and cancelled that meeting? And
Yeah.
she emailed me a couple of times after I cancelled the meeting asking me why, and then another email asking why I cancelled it and was it because of the NDA situation. And I didn't bother responding. We won't talk about how bad I felt about not replying.
No, oh God. Oh my God, yes.
But anyway, so I felt really bad about that. But the relief of like saying no and actually holding firm
And
on that,
sticking to
I'm
that.
not doing it. I'm not putting myself through this.
And I
The
think,
relief
though,
was immense.
well done you for actually doing that, because so often in the past, I bet you'd have went, oh my God, I've said yes to this person that I'm going to do this work.
Yeah.
I can't back out now, even though the project hadn't begun.
No contracts were signed, nothing was confirmed at all.
And even though a client can cancel a project on us at any time, and we've come to expect that, we kind of feel we can't let them down. We're is the people pleasing part of being
Oh my God, yes.
comes in, and the can't let them down, can't let them down, can't let them down. And even though you end up working till midnight or through the night sometimes, and like you've not put your kids to bed that night, or whatever thing you've gave up to do for that person, they have no idea you've even had to do that. Because you just think, well, it won't take you long.
No.
And you're like, oh my God, that's literally 5 hours of work.
Yeah. It's
Like,
not a
that
quick
you just
5-minute thing. Yeah.
It's scary. I am so scared of confrontation that I anticipate what the confrontation is going to be and fear it.
Before it's even happened, right?
Yes, yes. I love that we now have AI to help us compose responses to clients like this, because it words it so much more beautifully and diplomatically and takes the emotion. I'm a very emotion-led person, and I really struggle to not put that into my responses and how I react to things. And I've found it been amazing to just help me. Because I would literally sit, I remember sitting at my desk trying to compose an email to a client, and it literally taking me 2-3 hours, rewriting, walking away from my desk, coming back, rereading it. No, I can't quite send that yet. And apologising, over apologising in it as well.
Do you know one thing I'm really proud of myself? And I will hold my hands up and say I am really proud of myself for this. When I cancelled this meeting and this project, I didn't say sorry once.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So proud that I didn't.
Yes, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
No, that's a big thing.
It is. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Especially, I guess, like female designers. I don't know whether men in the design industry feel like this or not, but I always feel like I've got to be apologetic, or I've got to
Yeah.
constantly be saying sorry about something.
Do you know what I do find I'm getting more confident as I get
I
older,
am. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm getting a bit more bullshit, as my dad would call me. And funnily enough,
Am I allowed to swear? Fuck it 40s, isn't it? Is what it is for me. It is my fuck it 40s.
yes, I just turned 49, so I'm about to enter into 50s.
Amazing.
I I do think menopause has been a big part of this. It's almost
Yes.
like I just don't give a fuck anymore because I've
Yeah.
been through so much shit the last 6, 7 years through menopause, because it started early 40s for me, that I'm just now at this point, I'm just like, don't care. And you
Doesn't
know
matter.
what actually happened the weekend, and it was not really designed, but we're down the lakes with my husband. We're in Windermere, and it's the Niagara Beach, and we're just chatting away. And as we're walking up the hill in a narrow path this road, and there's a husband and wife walking down side by side. And as we're walking, I took a step slightly to my left, shoulder slightly behind my husband's shoulder, but still walking beside him.
Yeah.
And as I'm walking towards him, I thought, this man has not moved an inch as he's walking towards
Right.
me. Right?
Yeah.
So I refused to walk any further to my left, and I carried on walking, and I actually barged shoulders with him, fully barged shoulders with him. And my husband kind of turned and he looked, and I went, not moving out of the way for him. He can move for me. And he's just like, oh my God, what's getting to you? But he was just like, well done, you. And I was like, I'm fed up moving out of the way for men who do not even accommodate that I am also standing here. And he's like,
Yeah.
good for you, because I know my husband would absolutely move out of the way for a woman, and he would stand behind me to let a woman pass. And I've had to point out to him so many times that not all men are like that.
Not everybody does that. No.
And not everybody does that. And I'm fed up. And I would have in the past moved out the way if I'd still brushed shoulders, turned around and immediately apologised.
Yeah.
Didn't,
Right.
didn't even look back. And my husband looked back and he went, you totally looked at you. I went, good. And the,
Good for him.
and the man was like older, so he was late 50s maybe. But it's the fact he was like literally walking and seeing me walk towards it and didn't budge an inch. And in my brain, it was just like this instant anger.
So frustrating, isn't it? If you've moved a little bit, all it would take was for him to also move a little bit.
Yeah.
Easy, right?
And yes, and my best friend's the same. She lives in London, so she's doing the commute into London every day. And she's tiny. She's like 5'1". Like, she's in the middle, and men are like legs spreading beside her, like totally taking up her space. And she just now puts her bags either side of her. She's not the kids in her way. And she's
As
like, what is it with men?
somebody who has done that sort of commute in London a few years ago on a daily basis.
It is awful. And she's not a woman who's afraid to speak her opinion, but and she's tiny but fierce.
We've all got to
And
be tiny
again,
bit fierce.
exact same age as me in the house. So it's almost like we're now entering that period where we're just like, just don't give a shit anymore what you think. And I think as well, because I know what I was like in the past as a designer. And again, as you say, as a woman, I felt like I've had to fight my worth and my place.
Yes.
And the skills I have. And weirdly, I was actually talking about Darren about this yesterday in the chat we had. He goes, I almost, and this was after we'd finished recording, he goes, I actually feel like I have to start off apologising for being a white male, because he says, and most of his friends that he's met are female designers and female creatives, and the coaches he has, his YouTube coaches, Pinterest coaches, are all women. So he's working and learning from women. He goes, but I hear and I see the things that you guys go through every day that just we don't even have to even think about. And I said to him, I says, well, when I started off as a designer in the mid 1990s, that sounds like still century, there was no females. I went, not even over 40, not over 35 anywhere. I was often the only female. I said, and it was a very male orientated environment. And I thought once I had my children, I wouldn't be a designer anymore because there was no designers to look up to and see. And he's like, that's just crazy. I said, so now I actually feel quite proud of myself that I'm approaching my 50s and I am still very much in the design industry.
Yeah.
I am.
For the younger designers to look up to.
Yes. And I never thought I would be that person, because I had so little confidence when I first started in design, and never thought I'd survive my first year because it was brutal, and I had places I worked that were so awful. Now I ended up working in a small agency where My boss at the time was only 6 years older. He became like a big brother and a mentor and so lovely. And he's still a really good friend now. If I
Oh,
hadn't met him, I would not be a designer because my other experiences made me fear going into work. And I was crying in the train. And when I think the problem we have with boundaries and saying no and trusting our gut is we're kind of taught to ignore our gut.
I think we are. I think we are. We're kind of taught to just get on with it and just.
And I think we're learning now that the gut is really powerful, and
Oh,
when
it
you ignore
is.
it,
Yes.
you end up with these stomach issues and stress
Yeah.
and anxiety and
And that's what happens to you as a person. But when you ignore your gut, whatever your project you've taken on or client you've taken on, even though somewhere you knew you shouldn't, it ends up kind of going a bit wrong, or it just something just doesn't work out.
yes. And it's the amount of times I have argued with my gut, and I don't know if you do this.
Yes.
I argue with myself in my
Yeah.
head, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I trick
Come
myself
on, just do
into
it.
it'll
Or
be
no,
okay.
don't do it. Do it.
I
Don't do it.
I won't make that mistake this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, you've done it again, Julie. You've just literally let somebody walk all over you and now send you that thing that they were going to send on Monday and you don't get it till the Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning and you're still going to do it and now work the weekend on it, aren't you, Julie? And it's like, I actually have this mental battle with myself.
Yep. Been there plenty of times.
And then you just think, when am I going to get better at this? Because at the end of the day, and I think now I've done it so long, I now realise actually they could have waited till Monday to get that.
They've sent it so late, then yeah, absolutely they can wait.
And it's fun. I think one of the biggest lessons I got was actually working in house. And I'd been like 10 years in agencies and literally client was king, client got what they wanted. Literally we were driven by what they said we did. There was
Yeah.
no saying no in agency life and that's what I'd grown up with and experience of.
Oh my
Then
God.
when I went into in-house, I just thought, and I was for a while the only designer in an organisation, so I was getting things left, right from different
Yeah.
teams and there's no coordination. They were just like, yes, I've got a designer. That's great. I need this. And I had a line manager and I'd never had a manager before. And it was when we were sitting down to talk about work, what we had on. And I was like, listening to my projects. And she's like, oh my good God, why do you have so much work? They've just asked for this and they need this. And she's like, you realise that's why I'm here, don't you? And I'm like, what do you mean that's why you're here? Because when you have too much work on, and you don't know what the priority is because I'm not part of the meetings of the greater overall strategy and what's the most important things that these teams are working on. I'm just just was included in those. She went, I'm in those meetings. So I know when a team's saying to you they need this week, whether they actually genuinely do.
Whether it's a priority or not.
Whether
Yeah.
it's a priority or not. She went, so you should be telling me what teams are wanting from you and then you have discussions with me and then I prioritise what work is important in order it gets done. And if you get any like clashback or like hit back from the teams, you refer them to me because I'm your manager and that's what I do. I handle all that crap. And you just got on with your work. And I was like, wow, oh my God, do you do that for me? You like, yes. She said, don't sit with it all. I'm like, this is a revelation.
This is what we all need, right? Like project manager style hats that we can.
And I seen it time and time again when I then eventually the organisation get bigger, my team get bigger. I was then head of design and I brought in other designers into the team. They all had the same issues I had the first couple of years I was in a job. They were all like wanting to be helpful, wanting to be accommodating, bending timelines, taking on extra work. And then I'm just like, oh my God, no. And I was literally in my head thinking, I'm now having the same conversation my boss had with me when I was in this job and I'm now having it with other designers. I do just think it's the way designers are built and it's how they are and it's very hard to unlearn and retrain the brain.
There's a lot of unpicking to do, isn't there?
Yes. And I think it's why, I don't know if you notice, whenever designers do talk about spotting red flags, things that is definitely where I see engagement when I talk about it and things I notice because we all have the exact same experiences in reality. And I don't know if
it's relatable and it makes others sit up and sort of go, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know you experienced the exact same thing. It just makes you feel better, doesn't it?
It really does. And again, though, were terrible at glossing over the crappy parts.
Oh, yeah.
He's going, yeah, it was a bit difficult. And yeah, oh my God, I spent like 3 times the amount of hours on that project than I should have done. But oh, they finally paid me. And you're just so
Yeah.
grateful to get paid at the end of the project. But
Right?
then there's that fear
Yeah.
as well, isn't there? If I walk away from this, I'm not going to get paid, even though I've put all this work into it.
Mm.
The client's going to just go, well, I'm not paying you, you've not finished the project. And I think that's what makes a lot of us stick it and see it through.
But this is where a good contract comes in handy. There's a little bit on my contract that says, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something about how if either of us cancels a project for whatever reason, I get paid for any work I've done up to sort of the date of the cancellation. I mean, I've never had to like take anybody to court for payment, but it's just makes me feel better that it's in there, and that if it was to come to something, I'm protected.
Yeah. And I do have a clause in there as well. I've not had to implement it. I have had projects stop, but because I take like a chunk deposit to kind of like place me in my diary to work on a project. And if it's a smaller project, it's like 50% at the start, 50% on completion before handing over the files.
Same. Yep.
Or if it's a chunkier project, what I like to do is I take 40%. Then midway through the project, like say a brand project, I'll take 40%. And once I get to the kind of the concept stage and showing them logo concepts and they're happy with it and they like it, and I've still to create all the assets and the cladding and stuff, I'll take another 30% then.
That's a good idea.
So then I'm just left with the final 30% at the end of the project, and I'm not waiting on that final 60%. And then that way I've found they've invested more money, so they're more committed to foreseeing the end of the project through. But also I'm protected because projects have stalled at that stage. Once I've got that next 30%, things have happened. And I've not actually finally completed the hair project. It's bizarre. But
Very bizarre.
have you got any other red flag experiences you're willing to share? Yeah.
I think this one probably, again, red flag, and actually the values I have in myself as me and as a business owner, and sort of what I won't accept in my business. A few years ago, I started working with a client who wanted me to do some promotional like materials, so like leaflets and little booklets for something they were setting up for Diwali. And the client came to me via somebody who we had like a mutual contact. So I don't know about you, but sometimes when you get referrals from a mutual contact, you're more trusting because somebody who you know is a good person has recommended somebody else who you also assume is a good client, right?
Yes. And the one I'm going to talk about is that exact situation.
Excellent. Okay, right. I look forward to hearing that one. Anyway, it started out great. There was a bit of back and forth, sort of kind of ironing out the scope and what the deliverables would be. All great. Deposits paid, contracts signed. We'd done one part of the project and we were moving on to the second part of the project, which was like an 8-page brochure about some gift baskets that they were selling. And part of the sort of the contract was that the client was going to supply the images to use within this bit of collateral, right? I don't have to do any image sourcing. We'll leave that down to the client. That's fine. And she sent me a load of images and they were varying in sort of their style. They didn't look consistent. And I don't know what it was, but there were 1 or 2 images that looked really, really different. And something in my gut just said, like, I need to question where these images are from. I emailed her and asked her where they were from, and she told me that they were images that she had taken. So, like, photos that she had taken herself.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Something still felt off about the images. Genuinely, I don't know what it was, so I can't even explain it, but it was just this something right.
Your gut.
It was my gut, clearly. So I did a Google image reverse search and I found those exact same images on a florist's website that was local to where this client was based.
My goodness.
I was fuming. I was so angry. I had to take a bit of a break, go for a walk, because I knew if I emailed her I would,
Yeah.
you know, shouty capital letters, kind of
Yeah.
whatever. And that is not going to do anybody any good, right? Whoever walked cleared my head, came back, and I wrote her an email saying that I'd done a reverse search. The images weren't hers, so I wasn't going to use them. And I was going to cancel the contract because I didn't want to work with somebody who was A, going to steal images and send them to me to use, and B, lie to me when questioned about it. So
Yeah.
it was a, you know, half of the project was outstanding. And I said to them, I don't want any more money from you. I'm not going to finish the work. The bits that I have finished, just take.
Uh-huh.
And we're drawing a line under it,
Okay.
and I'm cancelling the contract.
And did she come back to you after that?
She did. No, so she didn't. Her business partner did. She didn't email me back. I can't remember exactly what her business partner said because it was a while ago now, but something along the lines of like, you know, thanks for letting them know. Like literally, that was it. Nobody addressed the
actual issue.
like the images. You know, it's in my contract that I will not use images that are.
And I think as well, we've came from the days where people used to lift stuff all the time.
Oh my God, yes.
Like,
I think people still do, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a big no. It's a huge no.
And
And
especially if it's a local business to their business.
I just couldn't bring myself to. I couldn't bring myself to use the image. No way. That wasn't even in question.
Yeah.
I just couldn't bring myself to then carry on working with somebody who I knew A, stole something that wasn't theirs, and B, lied to me. Like that, I could have done with the extra work and the extra money that the rest of that contract would have brought in.
Yeah.
But I couldn't compromise on any.
There's something about your own integrity, isn't there?
Yeah.
And knowing. And I think some people are really quite naive, that they don't understand how easy it is to do reverse searches on things.
Right.
And how to find where images are from and stuff. It's not difficult to do.
It really confused me because we'd had so many conversations. She was really struggling to get the kind of images that she wanted to use for this particular 8-pager. And I even gave her some advice about like if she's selling gifting baskets, how she could set up the products within the basket to take some photographs herself. She doesn't need a professional camera, can use an iPhone. You know, she sent me some really shoddy images she'd taken in a supermarket, which I said to her weren't good enough. And to then be presented with after you've had all these conversations.
Yeah. And especially, which is probably what told you your gut that something was obviously really lovely images that were in such a stark contrast to the
probably was. Yeah.
And like, she's not taking that. She's not suddenly learned how to compose an image and lighting and stuff like that.
No, this is it.
And that, what you were just describing there, that whole trap of if it's a client or a friend you've worked with know well and you know is a good person and things like that, when they refer someone to you, there is then an automatic trust.
There is. Yeah, absolutely.
They trust you because they've referred you to that person. So they must think, well, you're a good designer. You must be great to work with. And I had that same situation quite early on. And so I did my 9 to 5 really well alongside building my business before I left it. So this was still during that time. So I was working nights and weekends on my projects. The client knew this and they were a tech startup, which is not the kind of client I genuinely work with. For good reason. And it's also kind of like, I just prefer working with women. I found that the men that I do work with are usually the husbands of female clients that I've had that have then referred me. And again, I just think I've been fed up with men telling me what to do my whole career. And I'm just saying, I don't want clients like that. So that's kind of like where I am in that space. But this was early on and I'd worked with this client a lot and she was amazing to work with and she'd referred me to a few people. She was a operations business manager. So she worked with in and out different companies. I thought, oh, this guy will be great. And she did say, how he can be a bit strange, and she'd actually worked with him in her previous job. So she knew him really well. And I was like, okay. My first red flag, which I ignored, was doing the call with them. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go into a call with somebody, a discovery call and a quick catch up, it's very much a two-way thing of, do I like you and do you like me? Do you think we'll work well together?
Absolutely.
I'm not selling myself. I'm not sitting through a job interview with them. I have a whole portfolio of work that you can see. This guy started grilling me. Felt like I was in an interview.
No.
And right that way, I was just like, and I could feel this kind of like I didn't know this was going to be the tone of the chat we were having. But okay, I'll answer your questions. Some guys who are quite analytical, literal
Yes.
type,
Yep.
techie type. So I thought maybe that's
Okay.
just the
Yeah.
way they process information and need to know facts and
Give
stats
him the
I
yeah.
have behind the work that I do. But it was a wee bit, I felt a wee bit patronised, like,
Oh,
and these tone, like, how much experience do you have working with companies the size of mine and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, hunters, mate. That's the kind of what I wanted to say. Hunters. That was the Glaswegian coming out there. And I was just like, okay. But again, people pleaser,
yep.
want to be reassuring. And I was quite lucky because I was working on my business well in 9 to 5. I didn't have the monetary pressure of
Okay.
earning an income. So I could be more selective with the work I took on. But again, I felt I had to take it on because of the working relationship I had with the other,
Yes,
you
with the
know?
person who referred him. Yeah.
Yes, because they gave me lots of clients. So I was like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm ignoring that inner gut, that inner voice
Yeah.
that's trying to tell me not to work with this person. And it was to do proper branding of their business. They
Okay.
had set something up quickly because it was fast paced but they were quickly getting in. They were developing some sort of computer software,
Okay.
but for big companies, big high street names,
Okay.
like the mega names, right? So this is why it came to me is that we need to have a much more professional branding now
Okay.
and clear across our website and all our collateral and different things. And I'm like, absolutely can do.
Yep.
And he explains, look, I'm working this at nights and weekends because I'm still 9 to 5. And I think I was down to like 4 days at that point.
Mm.
That's absolutely no problem. And I was like, this is my timelines for branding. It's 4 to 6 week timeline so that we go through the brand strategy first and get all that in place before we then do your brand identity
Yeah.
development. Absolutely no bother. So then I started working on the brand strategy part and that takes like a week or two. So that's
Yep.
fine. But while I was doing that, he then came back to me and messaged me at night time. And I do like working at night. However, I've learned not to reply to clients at night.
Yeah.
And because I did reply at night, I was like, great, you're around. So I'm doing this major pitch to high street name and it's like £1 million contract and we wanted to look top notch. Could you take a wee look at our PowerPoint slides and make the presentation look more thingy?
Oh.
So say this was Tuesday night, about 10 at night, right?
Yeah.
They needed it by Thursday morning.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm thinking, okay, I'm already working with them on development, so yeah, I could do it. It's last minute. So of course then I start with, well, this is obviously separate to your other
Hmm.
project, so this will be a separate cost. It's a tight turnaround. That'll obviously be additional fees for that turnaround. And is that absolutely okay? And but the
Okay.
thing was what I'd forgot to mention. When he was actually talking, the initial call, I then sent the proposal document outlining everything and my day rate and all that kind of stuff, what that would be. Do you know he actually went on a call with me afterwards? I still worked with him and he questioned my day rate. Why are you so expensive? And I'm just like, that's my day rate. And the
That's my
ironic thing is
cost.
that the client who referred to me, she actually helped me calculate my day rate right, and what it should be, which was a revelation in itself because there was also
Yeah.
things that I hadn't thought about that I should be including in my day rate. He's like, that's what I would expect to pay an agency. And I was like, but you do realise that I'm the type of experienced designer that you would be working with in the agency.
See. Yeah.
I says, it's the same experience I have. I now just work freelance, but that doesn't mean I'm any cheaper to hire to work for you. And he couldn't comprehend that. So that made me like, first you interview me, like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you
Then you
question
question.
costs. So I think that's why I had specifically said this is a separate cost. And also there's an extra cost because you're wanting
Yeah.
it so quickly. So worked on it the following night. He agreed to it and loved what I did. And I know he
Excellent.
to the client. Then I invoiced him and he queried the bill. He's like, why have you added that extra fee? I was like, because it was literally like a 24-hour turnaround. And he's like, okay, right, fine. But he was then giving it the whole, but we want to work with you more consistently. We hope to you to be our person that
Oh, the whole
we need and all that kind of
there's
stuff. Right?
more work to come in the future,
Oh,
so maybe you can like lower your costs or do it for free or oh,
And I'm like, and?
Yeah.
No, and I was like, but also I realised, damn it, I shouldn't have responded to him at night time because now he knows that I'm around. I did that quick turnaround. Now it's an expectation. And he was that kind of way where he, as I realised, he jumped thing to thing to thing, and his deadlines changed and things needed changed. But then to top it all, so say this was like the following week, I'd then at the end of the week sent his brand strategy, again, really happy with it. And I was saying, right, okay, now you're going to be like a couple of weeks while I work on forming your identity in line with your brand strategy. So it then is perfect for you for the next 3 to 5 years of growth of your company to where you want the company to be, etc. Right? By the Tuesday the following week, he sent me an email. Hi, so we realised here that we just want to get moving with things. So my developer guy has just quickly done a logo. Right? And I'm just
Oh
like,
my God.
I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Right? So as I'm reading it, so what we need you to do now, Julie, if it's okay, is just like sharpen up what they've done
Oh my
and
God.
adapt it and make it ready for Vector. And yeah, this'll do it
My
for the work
God.
you've done so far. And then if you just work with our logo to bring out all the assets, and honestly, I was just like, you've just disregarded all the work I've done into your brand strategy and all the reasonings behind it of why your logo identity has matched this. And if you think getting your web developer guide to just quickly do something overnight, send that to me and I'm going to use that logo to then place across all your assets, get stuffed. So I did actually email him and end the contract and said I'd do work
Good.
with other people's logos. That's not what I do. I don't actually think I'm the best designer to work with you now on the completion of this project, and stepped away. And like that I felt I could do it at the time because I had the backup. I was still 5. So, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I'd have walked away.
If you didn't have that
Backup. Which is awful to say because I should have still walked away. But when you have a mortgage and you have commitments and all that kind of stuff. And
you don't know how you're going to react to something or a certain situation if one part of life is different, right? So there's no way to predict that, to be fair.
And I think that's an interesting thing as well, is how we react and trust our gut and hold boundaries is often depends on the place we are in life anyway. And the whole feast and famine with freelancing, I said yes to jobs that I usually
I've got a good one to tell you about that.
yes, okay, there you go.
So this was just in the lovely year that is 2020.
Yeah.
Overnight, lost all my client work because they were like, right, the world is stopping, so we're going to stop all our creative stuff that we're doing. And about 2 or 3 weeks after that happened, I got an email from somebody who, again, I had been recommended to. And they were launching a new product and they wanted to work with a designer. Now, to create their brand. Not necessarily the kind of client I would have chosen to work with, but, I'd just lost all my client work. So I said, sure, I can do this, and took it on. They paid the deposit, paid the contract. They didn't question what I'd quoted, like nothing. So no red flags whatsoever. Start doing the initial part of the project where I'm having conversations with them, sending them my branding questionnaire, finding out about them and their business and what they want to do with it, where they see themselves, the usual kind of things that you do before actually start designing something, right? So I created these 3 options for their end. I thought they were fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So good, right? I didn't like any of them. So that's fine. As long as you can give me not feedback that says we don't like them and we can't tell you why, but you need to be a bit specific, right? So again, they said they couldn't be specific on an email, and could they have a phone call with me? So I was like, okay, we can do a video call, it's fine. My kids are at home, but it's fine. And they were quite young at the time. They were like maybe like 6 and 8 or something, so quite young, learning at home, doing the online classroom thing. But I didn't see an issue with doing this, like, one additional phone call. So we did it, and I worked through the edits. And actually, once we started talking and they were able to talk me through their thoughts, actually, it wasn't we don't like any of them. It was there are things about specific ones that worked, but they just wanted to see a few different ideas based on the original things I provided. fine, we'll do it. Sent them over. They wanted to go on another call. And this is where I was like, but I've got my kids at home. They are learning in the background. At that time, I was working in our living room and my youngest was on a desk doing her sort of online class. So actually taking calls was really difficult.
Yeah.
And then, so I said no. And I said, email would be better. And also, I've then got something in writing that I can refer back to, right? And I got this email back from them saying they didn't know whether they wanted to continue working with me because they thought I would be more available on the phone so that we could work on this, so that I could design stuff while they were on the phone telling me what to do. So I emailed him back saying that I really appreciated the opportunity. Thank you. And thanks for his honesty, but I don't work like that.
Yeah.
And if that was how they wanted to work, then cancelling the contract was a really good idea because I wasn't the right person for them. No red flags, never said anything like that at the beginning. Had they said at the beginning they wanted a phone call at every single stage for me to be on hand to like change colours while they're on the phone or change designs while they're on the phone, I would have said no, I don't work like that.
Gotcha.
I love working collaboratively with my clients. It is always a back and forth process, but never one where they're kind of sitting on my shoulder telling me what to do.
And as somebody who, when I worked in agencies, and this was pre
Mm,
emails were just like happening, how it was, you would have same day bike couriers who'd literally bike a paper copy of the magazine or the report you're working on with handwritten notes all over it. And we used to do a lot of work for the council, and they would literally drive down and sit beside me and talk me through every single edit as I did it. And in some ways it educated them that sometimes we were asking for an extra paragraph to go onto that page of text, and I'm like, there's literally no more room for an extra paragraph to go in. Or explaining to them that if you add an extra paragraph on page 10 and this is a 120-page annual report, it's going to
then
affect
has a
the flow
knock-on
of the whole
effect.
document. And I'm like, oh my God, really? You're like, yeah,
You're like, you'll need to add an extra few pages just to make it right for print. And you're right. But I don't know about you though. Whenever I had to do anything like that, I'd forget how to do things.
Yes, I'd literally forget how to design. I'd forget what things were. I'd forget what shortcut that I would use without even thinking about it from memory. I would just go blank. Very actively avoid clients like that because I have had a couple of clients like that. I initially just do one initial call to kick off a project. Otherwise, it's literally by communications after that.
Like having things in writing to refer back to. If I have a phone call with somebody, chances of me forgetting something or not understanding the notes I've written down,
me too.
so high. Whereas if I've got it in writing from them, easy. I can refer back to it as often as I need to.
Yes. How do you feel about getting Loom recordings of feedback?
I've never had any Loom recordings of feedback.
Have you?
Voice notes from clients for feedbacks, but only clients who I have a very long-term working relationship with. So, kind of retainer clients and things like that. And I don't mind those because I'm quite good at sort of listening, saying, thanks, I'll get back to you. And, only then actioning it when I've got the time or when I am then next working on their project. I'm not sure how I feel about a Loom recording for feedback.
Yeah, it's like I've had a couple of clients who it's their preferred way because it saves them time to just talk through their thoughts on stuff. But what I find is it then, like, and some of them can be 7-10 minutes long. So then it's like I'm having to re-listen to it several times while taking notes to understand what changes they want because they're not quite clear and they jump around and they change. And then as I'm writing down, I'm thinking, but they said the opposite thing at the start about that colour. Now they're saying they like it, but they said they didn't like it at the start. And
so the feedback isn't,
concise.
you just want consistent, like comments on an email, right? Or even, the way I really love getting feedback from clients at the moment is rather than emailing them, so like I'm working with a charity client at the moment on a PDF document and I share it via Acrobat with them. They will put comments all over it.
Yeah.
And I love that it's a shared file and I can see what they're commenting. They can see if I respond to a comment, but they always let me know, right, we've finished. So I will then go into the PDF, read a comment, tick it off, it's done.
I used to love that when I was in corporate.
Yeah.
they were used to PDFs and using them.
Yeah.
And it was great because like that, we could literally just go through a list and tick and check or respond back and say why we
Yeah.
can't do that thing because
Yeah.
we could expect something else. And then they would see that response without being on a phone call.
Yeah.
What I found though is a lot of my clients are small businesses. They don't know how to use Acrobat. They don't know how
Oh
to do the
no.
feedback,
Okay.
and it can be a bit.
It
I
can.
have uploaded the design into an Express document, then shared it
Oh,
with them
yeah.
because they can then comment, and it's a
Yeah.
bit easier for them, and it's easier for them to
Yeah.
just
That's a
click
good
on the
idea.
link and it opens up straight away.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that helps. But it is interesting. And I think, I mean, I know we're gabbing for ages, but one last boundary I really
Yeah, go on.
struggle with is when you have clients who are really good friends and it crosses the client friendship boundary, but then you find
Yeah.
yourself in a place where they take advantage, and that's when you get late client asks or and I will just briefly to say this one. So this was a client
Yeah.
who was a friend first, then turned
Right.
into a client,
Okay.
and they work in an industry where everything's last minute deadlines anyway in
Right.
the industry. One, I am terrible at pricing the work I do for them. I feel I need to give mates rates. Even though I know the work always ends up being that I get virtually no brief. I get told to just do something creative or Julie, I love the work you do, just do anything. Knowing that
Oh,
whatever I do, she will
that's
not. The worst one I had a few years ago, they were setting up for an event that's happening on a Sunday, Saturday night. The kids were younger. They were at their dad's. My husband and I were going to have a Chinese takeaway, relax. And I was in the shower. And my phone was on the bathroom counter.
yeah.
I could see it kind of like buzzing, vibrating. I kind of ignored it, but then it kept going, kept going. So I looked
Yeah.
at the screen. And literally, there were sending messages, SOS, SOS, need your help, need your help. This is 7 at night, right?
Oh,
Saturday night. And
on a Saturday.
Saturday
Oh,
night, right?
right.
And so, so I came out the shower. Husband is away picking up the Chinese.
Okay.
And they call me, like they get me on the phone because they never ever email me or message me because they know I can say no. They always get me on the phone and they are very persuasive, right? Just a technique they
Okay.
have. And they're just like, Julie, I need your help, crisis. Set off this event. It's like one of their biggest of the year. And she's like, I've just taken the banners out and the banners weren't stored properly and are all bashed and they look horrible and how we need these redone. I've phoned the printer. They're going to come in first thing tomorrow morning, Sunday morning to print these. Can you design them tonight? What do you think I said?
You said yes, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Oh my
And
God.
in my head, right, she starts rhyming off what they need. And I already know the logo I need to work with is god awful, right? It's like actually got an image embedded within the logo, so it's very difficult to work around. Pull up banners and banners. And then she says to me, at this point, I just need anything, do whatever, do something nice. I know you'll do something lovely. And can you get it to me in the next couple of hours? And I was like, right, okay. So then I'm just running upstairs quickly at dressing room office, and my husband comes home. He's like, why are we in here? And I'm like, such and such called. And he knows the minute I say the name, he just goes, Jesus.
Oh.
And I mean, I can't let her down. It's for this event's happened. He's like, it's okay. So he then literally goes and plates everything up and brings it up
Oh.
here to the office for me to eat my dinner. He's down the stairs. But then the back and forth starts. The text messages, oh, we need this on it. Oh, we need to change that. The first designs I send through, immediate phone call, don't like them. And they're very blunt as well when they talk to me, like, don't like them. What don't you like? And then she talks through it and I'm going, right, because there's only so much I can achieve
On a Saturday night.
on a Saturday night. They
Yeah.
need this. So, of course, I end up thinking about 11 o'clock at night and sent it across. And this was a good 4 or 5 years ago now. It's taken me until a project I did for them about 3-4 months ago.
You're still working with them.
I'm saying I'm shit at boundaries, right? And especially because it's been a friendship thing as well.
Yeah, that's tricky.
I actually reached my cut-off point with the last project I worked on for them.
Yeah.
And I'll actually tell you why when we come off this call, 'cause I don't want to say it.
Okay.
On the podcast. I know that's awful, but I'll explain afterwards. But it took me another, there you go, 4 or 5 years to actually be able to say it. But not once. I got phone calls at 10 at night, messages like lastminute.com, always are discounted because of that friendship. I then found it very difficult to raise prices because in the beginning I was giving them.
And the thing is, our friends, should be paying us like full price, not discounted prices, because our friends support us, right? I mean, if I was to ask a friend to do some work for me and they sent me a cost, I wouldn't even question it. I wouldn't even expect mates rates. I like no discounts just because I'm your friend or just because I know you. Just tell me the cost.
I know, but I feel like we could probably talk all day, but we'll end the podcast before it gets too long. But I think one thing I'll say is don't learn from our mistakes and don't do what we've done. But what advice would you give to designers out there who struggle with trusting their gut and boundaries? What advice could you put?
Start listening to your gut, and it's a practice. It takes time. You're never going to get it right all the time, and you're never going to get it right from the beginning, are you? But the more you start doing it, the more you start questioning why something feels a bit weird or a bit off, the better you'll get at it. And I learned this from my coach, who is a very dear friend of mine. Our guts are there, like the things they tell us are there to protect our energy and protect our time and our boundaries, and we really need to get better at listening to them. Our bodies react in certain ways to things, and if you feel like you're on a call with a client and you're like all tense and shoulders hunched up, that's your gut trying to tell you something, and we need to listen to it. And one more thing that I would say is it's fucking okay to say no. And you don't need to justify yourself or explain yourself as to why you're saying no. It can just be no, I'm not taking this on.
Yeah, exactly. And what is it? Your gut's your second brain, which I didn't know until
something like that, isn't it?
something like that, isn't it? And that's how powerful it is that it's trying to tell us. And I felt like that way, like totally different as well. But in our situation where my son, I walk the dogs. Like I live in a town, but there's lots of fields and spaces and things that are quite remote. And it's that feeling I get sometimes if I'm walking with the dogs and I see a van parked or a person, a man walking up, and I don't feel quite. If they don't have a dog, I'm immediately sus, and I'll turn. And my teenage son was just like, "But why, Mum? But why would you need to do that?" And I'm like, "You don't understand. The gut protects women. That's what protects us sometimes when we're walking home at night or going somewhere that's like empty in a big field and there's nobody about."
Yeah, we're far too quick to ignore it at times, aren't we?
And give them the benefit of the due when actually it's probably what saves us. But I could talk to you forever. Where can people find you and connect with you?
So my website is b81designs.com. I'm trying very hard to regularly blog and update my portfolio on there, so you can find me on there. I am also on Instagram as b81designs, and on LinkedIn, just search for Bhavini Lakhani.
Excellent. Well, Bhavini, thank you so much for chatting today. I feel this is going to be a part 2. I'm going to have you back on at some point. So
I mean, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed speaking with you.
If anything we've talked about in this episode has hit a nerve a little bit, or you've had a similar experience, I would genuinely really love to hear from you. You can send me a message, leave me a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or share your own story with me. Because honestly, the more we talk about this stuff, the more we realise so many of us are dealing with the exact same things, the same experiences, the same situations, and can really help each other by talking more openly about it. And if you want a space to chat with other creatives who get it, I've got a community called The Creative Room. It's a really supportive space. We talk about the struggles, the rants, the clients, creating content, marketing yourself, all the other stuff that comes with running a creative business or working in this industry. I'll leave the link in the show notes if you fancy joining us, and I'll catch you in the next one.